Don't let her leave. Two security guards grabbed the elderly woman's arms before she could reach the boutique's exit. I paid for it, the woman pleaded, her voice trembling. Please check again. No one listened. Phones rose into the air as customers eagerly recorded the scene. Vanessa Clark stepped closer, her expression cold with contempt. You old thief. She lifted her hand. Before the slap could reach its target, someone rushed between them. The crack echoed through the silent boutique. A beautiful plus-size woman slowly turned her face back, a bright red handprint blooming across her cheek. She never moved. Instead, she looked calmly into Vanessa's eyes. If hurting someone makes you feel powerful, hit me. But you're not touching her again. The crowd fell completely silent. None of them realized the frightened elderly woman standing behind Amelia Brooks was Isabella Moretti, the mother of Chicago's most feared mafia boss. The slap echoed through the boutique long after Vanessa's hand had fallen. For several heartbeats, nobody moved. Customers who had eagerly lifted their phones suddenly lowered them, uncertain whether they had just witnessed an embarrassing misunderstanding or something far worse. Amelia Brooks ignored the sting spreading across her cheek. Her attention remained on the elderly woman trembling behind her. She gently reached back, resting one reassuring hand over the woman's shaking fingers. It's all right, Amelia said softly. You're not alone anymore. Vanessa recovered first, brushing invisible dust from her designer sleeve, as though nothing significant had happened. Security, she snapped. Call the police. Let them deal with both of them. One of the guards hesitated. For the first time since the confrontation began, uncertainty flickered across his face. Several customers had started murmuring among themselves, questioning whether anyone had actually seen the elderly woman steal anything. Within minutes, 2 police officers entered the boutique. The senior officer calmly separated everyone involved before asking a simple question. Does anyone have proof that the bracelet was stolen? Vanessa answered immediately. The surveillance cameras will show everything. The footage was pulled up in the manager's office. Everyone crowded around the monitor. The recording showed Isabella examining a bracelet before placing it back on the display. Moments later, another customer approached the same counter. While juggling several shopping bags and answering a phone call, the distracted woman accidentally knocked the bracelet into one of her own bags without noticing. She paid for her purchases and walked out, completely unaware of what had happened. The room fell silent. The bracelet had never been stolen. It had simply been misplaced. One officer looked toward Vanessa with visible disappointment. So before accusing this lady in front of an entire store, you never confirmed the item was actually missing. Vanessa's confidence cracked. It looked suspicious. Looking suspicious isn't evidence, the officer replied firmly. Outside the office, whispers spread rapidly through the boutique. People who had recorded Isabella moments earlier quietly deleted their videos. Others avoided meeting her eyes altogether. Vanessa reluctantly stepped forward. I'm sorry if there was a misunderstanding. The words sounded rehearsed, empty, spoken only because the police were watching. Amelia recognized the difference between an apology and an obligation. Isabella recognized it too. Rather than demanding more, the elderly woman simply nodded. I hope the next person you accuse receives better treatment than I did. Those gentle words carried far more weight than any angry outburst could have. After the officers completed their report, the crowd slowly dispersed. Only then did Amelia notice the faint bruises already forming around Isabella's wrists, where the guards had gripped her. May I walk you home? Amelia asked. You've already done more than enough. I'd feel better if I knew you got home safely. For the first time that afternoon, Isabella smiled. The walk through the neighborhood felt strangely peaceful after the chaos. They spoke about ordinary things, favorite flowers, small family traditions, the changing seasons. Neither woman mentioned the slap again. When they reached Isabella's destination, She paused before saying goodbye. You have a beautiful heart, Amelia. My mother used to say, kindness costs nothing. Your mother was a wise woman. Amelia smiled modestly. I only did what I hoped someone would do for my own mother. Isabella felt her eyes grow unexpectedly warm. For decades, people had shown her respect because of the Moretti name. Today, someone had risked being hurt for a woman they believed was completely ordinary. Before Amelia disappeared down the sidewalk, Isabella quietly glanced toward the small flower shop across the street. She memorized its name, its address, and the smiling woman who owned it. Some meetings changed a single afternoon. Others quietly changed an entire lifetime. That evening, the Moretti estate stood as quietly as ever. From the outside, it looked like the home of one of Chicago's most successful business families. Staff moved with practiced efficiency. Dinner was served on schedule, and every detail reflected wealth without excess. Inside, Adrian Moretti loosened his tie after another 14-hour day leading Moretti Corporation. To the public, he was a billionaire CEO whose calm leadership had transformed the company into one of the city's largest employers. Only a handful of people knew another truth. The empire he truly controlled reached far beyond boardrooms. Entire criminal organizations answered to him. Rival syndicates feared even speaking his name aloud. Adrian never ruled through rage. He ruled through discipline, which made his silence infinitely more dangerous. As he entered the dining room, he immediately noticed something unusual. His mother was wearing long sleeves despite the warm evening. She smiled as always, but her movements were slightly stiff whenever she reached for her glass. Adrian's eyes narrowed. What happened? Isabella tried to dismiss the question. Oh, it was nothing. He didn't answer. Instead, he gently rolled back the cuff of her sleeve. Dark bruises circled her wrist. Fresh, finger-shaped. The room became impossibly still. Every member of the household instinctively stopped moving. They all recognized that expression on Adrian's face. Not anger. Something colder. Calculation. He looked into his mother's eyes. Who touched you? It wasn't important. It is to me. She sighed softly, realizing there was no hiding the truth. I went shopping without my security team. Adrian's jaw tightened, but he allowed her to continue. They accused me of stealing. They grabbed me. There was some confusion. And then, for the first time that evening, Isabella smiled. A young woman stepped in. She stood between me and everyone else. Adrian remained silent. His mother rarely spoke about strangers with such warmth. They tried to slap me, Isabella continued quietly. She took the slap instead. That finally broke the silence, not through shouting, not through threats. Only through the faint sound of Adrian setting his glass onto the table. The crystal made a soft click. It was somehow louder than any scream. Within minutes, one of his trusted advisors entered carrying a tablet. The boutique has already provided surveillance footage. Adrian watched every second without speaking. He saw the security guards grabbing his mother. He saw customers lifting their phones instead of helping. He saw Vanessa Clark raise her hand. Then he saw Amelia. She never hesitated. She pushed past complete strangers without caring what might happen to her. She accepted a slap meant for someone she had never met. Then she stood there, protecting his mother with nothing except courage. The video ended. No one in the room dared interrupt the silence. Finally, Adrian spoke. What is her name? We're still confirming it. We're still confirming it. Find her. The order was delivered in the same calm tone he might have used to request tomorrow's meeting schedule. Yet everyone present understood its importance. His chief of security nodded once. Immediately. Adrian added one final instruction. No intimidation. No questions that frighten her. If she refuses to speak with us, respect that. The men exchanged brief glances. That was unusual. Very unusual. Most people sought Adrian's favor. This woman had earned his respect before even knowing his name. Across the city, Amelia Brooks was locking the door to her little flower shop. The bell above the entrance chimed softly as she switched off the lights. Her cheek still carried a faint trace of red beneath the makeup she had hurriedly applied. Business had been slow. 2 wedding orders had been cancelled that week. Rent was due in 5 days. She should have been worrying about money. Instead, she found herself wondering whether the elderly woman had gotten home safely. Her assistant noticed the fading mark on her face. You know, most people would have walked away. Amelia smiled, while watering the last arrangement of white lilies. Maybe, but if everyone waits for somebody else to help, then nobody ever does. She shrugged, as though it were the simplest truth in the world. I didn't do anything special. She truly believed that. Miles away, inside one of the most heavily protected homes in Chicago, Adrian Moretti watched the footage one final time. He paused it at the exact moment Amelia stepped in front of his mother. Most people measured courage by strength. He measured it by sacrifice. And the woman on his screen had willingly accepted pain for a complete stranger. For the first time in years, Adrian found himself genuinely curious about someone. Not because of who she was, but because of who she chose to be. 3 days passed before Isabella returned to the little flower shop. The bell above the door chimed softly as she stepped inside. Fresh flowers filled every corner, their colors brightening the modest space. There was nothing luxurious about the shop, yet it possessed a warmth that expensive boutiques could never imitate. Amelia looked up from trimming a bouquet. Her face immediately lit up. I was hoping you'd stop by. You remembered me? I remember everyone who leaves with flowers. Then Amelia grinned. And especially everyone who survives luxury boutiques. Isabella laughed harder than she had in weeks. I suppose we earned that memory. She wandered slowly between the arrangements while Amelia worked. Unlike high-end florists that pressured customers into extravagant purchases, Amelia patiently explained which flowers lasted longest, which suited birthdays, anniversaries, or simple apologies, and which combinations fit every budget. More than once, Isabella noticed Amelia quietly reducing prices for elderly customers who counted every dollar. No one seemed to notice, except Isabella. When the shop emptied again, Amelia handed her a small bouquet of daisies. You forgot these. I didn't order flowers. I know. They're leftovers from another arrangement. If I don't give them away, they'll wilt tomorrow. Isabella accepted them, though she recognized the tiny lie immediately. The flowers had been freshly cut. Amelia simply wanted someone to enjoy them. Over the following weeks, Isabella found increasingly creative reasons to visit. One day she needed roses. Another day, lavender. Another time she insisted she couldn't possibly choose between sunflowers and tulips without professional advice. Eventually, Amelia stopped pretending the visits were accidental. You don't actually need flowers every 3 days, do you? Isabella smiled innocently. I might simply enjoy the company. So do I. The friendship developed naturally. They shared coffee during quiet afternoons, talked while arranging bouquets, laughed over stories from completely different generations. For Amelia, Isabella became the grandmother she had lost years earlier. For Isabella, Amelia became the daughter she had never had. Meanwhile, Adrian received daily reports from his security team. Every visit, every conversation, every observation. Yet the reports frustrated him. There was nothing suspicious about Amelia Brooks. No hidden agenda. No financial scheme. No attempt to discover the Moretti family's identity. If anything, she appeared almost impossibly genuine. His advisors eventually asked the obvious question. Should we introduce ourselves? Adrian looked toward the latest photograph. Amelia was laughing as she accidentally dropped flower petals all over the floor while Isabella applauded dramatically. He shook his head. Not yet. Across town, Isabella had quietly begun working on another mission. My son is single. Amelia nearly dropped the watering can. That was subtle. I wasn't trying to be subtle. She burst into laughter. You've told me. Several times. And? And what? What do you think? Amelia shook her head with amused disbelief. I think every mother believes her son is the most handsome man alive. This time, I'm objectively correct. Oh? He's tall, successful, kind. He cooks. He visits me every week. Amelia folded her arms dramatically. Now you're making him sound fictional. I assure you, he exists. And why exactly is this perfect man still single? Isabella pretended to think deeply. He works too much. Ah, so he has at least one flaw. He also forgets birthdays. There we go. Now he sounds human. The two women laughed together. Then Isabella casually asked, would you ever consider meeting him? Amelia's smile softened. Honestly? She looked down at her hands before answering. A man like your son would never notice a woman built like me. The words were spoken gently, matter-of-factly, not with self-pity. Simply with the quiet resignation of someone who had heard too many cruel comments throughout her life. Isabella's heart ached. She remembered the confidence with which Amelia had stood in front of complete strangers. Yet when it came to herself, that courage disappeared. Isabella reached across the table and squeezed her hand. You'd be surprised. Amelia smiled politely. I appreciate your optimism. I'm serious. I've met enough people to know character lasts longer than beauty. Amelia laughed. Easy for you to say. No, it's experience. As Isabella prepared to leave, she glanced once more around the cheerful little shop. Flowers had always symbolized hope. Perhaps that was why her son had become fascinated by the woman who sold them. Or perhaps hope had simply found its way into both of their lives at exactly the right moment. Neither woman realized that outside, parked discreetly across the street, a black sedan waited silently. Inside sat Adrian Moretti. He had come only to see the flower shop from a distance. Yet through the front window, he watched Amelia laughing with his mother. For reasons he couldn't explain, it was the most peaceful sight he had seen in years. The following Monday began like any other. Amelia unlocked the flower shop just after sunrise, humming softly as she arranged buckets of fresh flowers outside the entrance. The neighborhood was waking up. Dog walkers exchanged greetings. Children hurried toward school. Delivery trucks rumbled through the streets. It felt like an ordinary morning, until a sleek black sedan stopped across the street. A tall man stepped out. His charcoal suit looked expensive enough to cost more than Amelia's monthly rent, yet he carried himself without arrogance. His expression was composed, almost unreadable, though his sharp grey eyes quietly studied the little flower shop before he entered. The bell chimed. Good morning, Amelia called without looking up. Give me 30 seconds, unless your flowers are an emergency. For perhaps the first time in 20 years, Adrian Moretti was told to wait. He almost smiled. I can wait. She finished wrapping a bouquet for another customer before turning toward him. Oh, she blinked once. You clean up nicely for someone buying flowers at 8 in the morning. Adrian raised an eyebrow. Is that unusual? Usually. She leaned casually against the counter. Men dressed like you either forgot an anniversary, or they're trying to apologize for something spectacular. A faint smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. And if neither is true, then congratulations. You've become my first statistical anomaly. The shop assistant nearly dropped a vase. Nobody joked with strangers that comfortably, especially strangers who looked powerful enough to own half the city. Adrian simply asked, I'm looking for flowers suitable for my mother. That's much easier. Amelia relaxed immediately. Mothers forgive almost everything. What message do you want the flowers to send? He considered the question carefully. Gratitude. She studied him for a moment. Not guilt? No. Good. She nodded approvingly. Flowers shouldn't replace apologies. They should accompany honesty. Adrian found himself unexpectedly intrigued. Most florists discussed prices. Amelia discussed emotions. She walked toward a display of white lilies, pale roses, and blue delphiniums. Lilies represent devotion. White roses speak of respect. And these. She lifted a stem of blue delphinium. I mean encouragement. Sometimes our parents need reminding that we're grateful they're still here. For a brief second, Adrian thought about his mother's battle with cancer. His voice softened almost imperceptibly. I'll take those. As Amelia gathered the flowers, a delivery truck pulled up outside. The driver unloaded several heavy boxes onto the sidewalk. I'll be with you in a second, Amelia said. She grabbed one carton before noticing Adrian watching. You look strong. He blinked. I beg your pardon? Excellent. She pointed toward the remaining boxes. You can carry those. No one in the room knew they had just witnessed something almost unimaginable. Hundreds of men carried boxes for Adrian Moretti every single day. No one had ever asked him to carry theirs. Without protest, he picked up 2 heavy cartons. The driver stared. The assistant stared. Even Adrian's security team, watching discreetly from outside, exchanged bewildered looks through their earpieces. Inside the shop, Amelia smiled brightly. Perfect! I officially promote you to temporary assistant florist. I don't recall applying. I have very relaxed hiring standards. Adrian actually laughed. A genuine laugh. It surprised even him. They spent the next 20 minutes arranging deliveries, moving flowers, and reorganizing shelves. Amelia worked naturally beside him, completely unaware that newspapers regularly called the man beside her one of Chicago's most influential billionaires. To her, he was simply an unusually well-dressed customer who happened to be surprisingly helpful. When everything was finished, she noticed a small smear of soil on his immaculate jacket. Oh dear! She brushed it away without hesitation. There. Now you look expensive again. Adrian looked down at her. Nobody had touched him so casually in years. There was no fear, no calculation, no attempt to impress him, only simple kindness. He accepted the bouquet and paid without mentioning his name. As he reached the door, Amelia called after him. Tell your mother, she's clearly raising a gentleman. He paused briefly before answering. I think she'd like hearing that. Outside, Adrian climbed into the waiting sedan. His chief of security glanced at him through the rearview mirror. Sir. Should we tell Miss Brooks who you are? Adrian looked back through the flower shop window, where Amelia was already laughing with another customer, as though their meeting had meant nothing extraordinary. No, he answered quietly. Not yet. For the first time in years, Adrian Moretti wanted someone to know the man before discovering the legend. Nearly 6 weeks passed. Life settled into a comfortable rhythm. Isabella visited the flower shop often. Adrian occasionally stopped by under perfectly ordinary excuses, sometimes ordering arrangements for corporate events, other times claiming his office desperately needed fresh flowers. Amelia teased him every single visit. She still believed he was nothing more than an overworked executive with impeccable manners. One Thursday afternoon, Isabella appeared carrying an elegant cream-colored envelope. I need a favor. Amelia accepted it curiously. A charity gala. Isabella nodded. Our foundation raises money for cancer patients. I'd love for you to come. Amelia immediately shook her head. I don't belong at events like that. Nonsense. I don't even own an evening gown. You'll find one. I'll look completely out of place. You'll look exactly where you're supposed to be. After several minutes of gentle persuasion, Amelia finally surrendered. Fine. But if people mistake me for the florist, I'm blaming you. Isabella smiled to herself. If only you knew. The ballroom shimmered beneath crystal chandeliers. Chicago's wealthiest families mingled beside politicians, philanthropists, and corporate executives. Amelia stepped inside, wearing a simple navy blue gown she had rented after nearly talking herself out of attending 3 separate times. It wasn't extravagant. It didn't need to be. She looked elegant, precisely because she wasn't trying to compete with anyone. Still, old insecurities whispered in her mind. Too curvy, too ordinary, too different. She took a slow breath, then reminded herself she wasn't there to impress strangers. She was there because Isabella had invited her. That alone was enough. Across the room, Adrian noticed her almost immediately. For several seconds, he forgot entirely about the conversation happening beside him. She looked nothing like the nervous woman she imagined herself to be. She looked confident, warm, beautiful. One of his business associates quietly followed his gaze. Someone interesting? Adrian answered simply, very. Before he could walk toward her, another familiar face entered his line of sight. Vanessa Clark. The former boutique manager had managed to keep her position temporarily while corporate investigators reviewed the incident. Tonight she attended as the guest of a luxury fashion sponsor. The moment she saw Amelia, recognition flashed across her face. Then came contempt. She crossed the ballroom deliberately. Several nearby guests sensed tension and instinctively stepped aside. "Well," Vanessa said, loudly enough for surrounding tables to hear. "If it isn't the overweight florist who slapped her way into rich society." Conversations stopped. Heads turned. Amelia froze. The words weren't new. She had heard similar insults throughout her life. School hallways, college parties, dating apps, even strangers online. Yet hearing them spoken aloud in a crowded ballroom reopened wounds she thought had healed. She answered quietly, "I'm only here because I was invited." Vanessa laughed. "I'm sure you were. People like you don't belong at events like this." Several guests shifted uncomfortably. No one spoke. The silence reminded Amelia of the boutique. Different room, same spectators. Vanessa stepped closer. "I suppose playing the victim worked out well for you." Then she grabbed Amelia's wrist. Not painfully, but possessively, as though removing her from the room herself. "Come on. I'll show you where the service entrance is." The ballroom became silent. Again. Amelia slowly looked around. Some people avoided eye contact. Others watched with embarrassed curiosity. She gently tried pulling her hand free. "Please let go." Vanessa tightened her grip. "No." Before Amelia could react again, another hand calmly wrapped around Vanessa's wrist. Firm, steady, unshakable. Vanessa turned. Her expression immediately changed. Standing between them was Adrian Moretti. His tailored tuxedo and composed expression commanded attention without a single raised voice. He looked at Vanessa, not with anger, with disappointment. "Remove your hand!" She obeyed instantly. Adrian positioned himself beside Amelia instead of in front of her, protecting her without making her feel powerless. Then he faced the ballroom. His voice remained perfectly calm. Yet every corner of the room heard every word. "The woman you just insulted." He glanced briefly toward Amelia. "Protected my mother when an entire room of strangers watched her suffer." His eyes swept across the silent audience. "When security restrained my mother, this woman stepped forward. When someone raised a hand against her, Amelia accepted the blow herself. Not because she expected recognition, not because she wanted a reward, but because kindness was more important to her than her own safety." A wave of astonishment spread across the ballroom. People exchanged confused whispers. Who was his mother? What incident was he talking about? Why would Adrian Moretti publicly defend an unknown florist? Vanessa's confidence completely disappeared. I didn't know. No, Adrian interrupted quietly. You didn't care. His words struck harder than shouting ever could. You judged two women by appearance. And today, you've done it again. No one defended Vanessa. No one even looked at her. She suddenly realized every important person in the ballroom had witnessed her humiliation. Her carefully cultivated reputation collapsed in a matter of seconds. Adrian gently turned toward Amelia. Are you all right? She nodded automatically, still overwhelmed by everything happening. I think so. He offered his arm with effortless courtesy. Would you allow me the honor of escorting you to dinner? The ballroom watched in stunned silence as one of Chicago's most respected billionaires walked away beside the plus-size florist whom moments earlier many had overlooked. For the second time, Amelia had stood alone against public humiliation. This time, someone had chosen to stand beside her. The gala ended much later than Amelia expected. Guests continued discussing Adrian Moretti's unexpected public defense long after dessert had been served. Some whispered that the billionaire had finally fallen in love. Others assumed Amelia must secretly belong to an influential family. No one guessed the truth. After the event, Adrian insisted on driving Amelia home himself. The city lights reflected across the windshield as silence settled comfortably between them. It wasn't awkward. It was thoughtful. Finally, Amelia spoke. I've never seen someone end an argument so politely. Adrian smiled faintly. I've learned that calm words often carry the most weight. You certainly proved that tonight. She hesitated. Thank you. You didn't have to defend me. I did. He answered without hesitation. You once did the same for someone important to me. Amelia laughed softly. Your mother is very persuasive. She is, and she's been trying to introduce us for weeks. That surprised her. So, you knew who I was? I've known for quite some time. She stared through the window. I can't believe she tricked me. It wasn't a trick. It was hope. When they reached the flower shop, Adrian walked her to the entrance. Neither seemed ready to say goodnight. Instead, Amelia asked the question that had been lingering in her mind since the ballroom. Who are you? Really? He looked at her quietly. I think it's time you knew. The following afternoon, Adrian invited Amelia to lunch. Not at an extravagant restaurant. Not in a private penthouse. Instead, they met inside a peaceful botanical garden cafe where few people recognized either of them. After they finished eating, Adrian placed his phone on the table. I need to tell you something before someone else does. He opened a financial magazine. Its cover featured his photograph. Adrian Moretti, CEO of Moretti Corporation. Amelia blinked. She looked from the magazine to the man sitting across from her, then back again. Oh, you really are your mother's handsome son. He laughed. I am. She shook her head. I thought you managed some office. I suppose that's technically true. She laughed with him. Then, Adrian's expression became more serious. There is more. He spoke carefully. My family has another history. One the public doesn't know. He never glorified it, never dramatized it. He simply told the truth. For decades, the Moretti family had controlled one of the most powerful mafia organizations in the Midwest. Years earlier, after violence threatened to destroy every family involved, Adrian had united the factions under strict rules. No wars, no unnecessary bloodshed, no crimes against children, no trafficking, no drugs. The organization still existed. Its reputation alone prevented countless conflicts. When he finished speaking, silence filled the table. Amelia's hands slowly tightened around her coffee cup. Not because she feared him, because suddenly every difference between them became impossible to ignore. She looked away. You should have told me sooner. I wanted you to know me first. I do know you, she answered honestly. That's what makes this difficult. He waited. I own a tiny flower shop. My biggest monthly worry is paying rent. You attend charity galas with senators. Your family owns buildings bigger than my entire neighborhood. She smiled sadly. I don't belong in your world. Adrian leaned forward. You think that's what matters? It matters to everyone else. Not to me. She lowered her eyes. You deserve someone elegant. Someone glamorous. Someone who looks like she belongs beside you in photographs. He watched her quietly before speaking. The day everyone watched my mother suffer, his voice remained calm. You were the only person who stood beside her. You didn't know her name. You didn't know her wealth. You didn't know who her son was. You only saw someone who needed help. Amelia felt tears threatening to appear. Adrian continued. I didn't fall in love with your courage. He shook his head gently. I fell in love with the kindness that made that courage possible. The courage lasted one moment. The kindness has been there every day since. He smiled softly. When you comfort nervous customers. When you secretly discount flowers for people who can't afford them. When you laugh at yourself before anyone else can. When you make my mother feel like an ordinary woman. You've been showing me who you are from the very beginning. Amelia could no longer hide the emotion in her eyes. I've spent half my life believing I was too much. Too big. Too ordinary. Too easy to overlook. Adrian reached across the table, not demanding, simply offering his hand. I've never overlooked you. The first time I saw you, you were standing taller than everyone else in the room. Not because of height, not because of appearance, because of character. Slowly, very slowly, Amelia placed her hand in his. Neither spoke for several moments. Some confessions required silence to become real. Outside, spring flowers swayed gently in the afternoon breeze. Inside the quiet cafe, two people from completely different worlds realized they had been walking toward each other long before either of them understood why. Several months later, spring had transformed Chicago into a city overflowing with color. No place reflected that transformation more beautifully than Amelia Brooks's little flower shop. Only now, it was no longer struggling to survive. Word had quietly spread throughout the city about the florist whose kindness had inspired one of Chicago's largest charitable foundations. Without ever asking for special treatment, Amelia had been invited to become the official floral designer for every Moretti Foundation charity event. Hospitals filled with fresh arrangements. Fundraising galas bloomed with elegant centerpieces. Community centers received flowers that brightened rooms where hope was often needed most. The additional work allowed Amelia to renovate her tiny shop, hire another employee, and finally stop worrying about whether each month's rent could be paid. She had earned every bit of her success, not because of who she loved, but because people finally discovered the talent that had always been there. One Sunday evening, the Moretti family gathered for dinner. Unlike the formal banquets outsiders imagined, the atmosphere was warm and surprisingly ordinary. Laughter filled the dining room. Stories interrupted one another. Even Adrian forgot about business for a few precious hours. As dessert was served, one of Isabella's longtime friends smiled across the table. Isabella, when did you know Amelia was the right woman for Adrian? Everyone looked toward her. Isabella didn't hesitate. She turned toward Amelia with the same gentle smile she had worn the first day they met. The moment she protected an old woman she believed was completely ordinary. The room grew quiet. She never asked my name. She never asked what I owned. She never wondered whether helping me would benefit her. She simply saw someone frightened and decided that person shouldn't stand alone. Isabella reached across the table and squeezed Amelia's hand. You cannot teach that kind of heart. You can only be grateful when you find it. Emotion shimmered in Amelia's eyes. For years, she had believed people noticed only her size. Tonight, someone had seen her soul. Adrian quietly reached for her hand beneath the table, their fingers naturally intertwining. He looked around the room before speaking. Everyone else saw a plus-size florist. His gaze settled on Amelia. I saw the bravest woman in Chicago. No one argued, because every person present knew it was true. Amelia laughed softly through happy tears. There had been a time when compliments made her uncomfortable because she never believed them. Not anymore. She had learned that love built on kindness never asked someone to become smaller, to hide, or to change. It simply welcomed them exactly as they were. For the first time in her life, Amelia no longer questioned whether she deserved to be loved. She simply accepted that she was. And somewhere beyond the warm lights of that family dinner, the little flower shop that had once struggled to survive continued filling Chicago with beauty, just as its owner had quietly filled countless lives with courage, long before anyone realized how extraordinary she truly was.